it's time to alive the life brigade. Step in the spotlight, grab a seat. Join with wisdom to share. Each video crafted with care. The Jen Hardy Show, oh yeah, it's here. Soak up the sun with glitter and cheer. Shower thoughts to make you think. Champagne wishes and caviar dreams. Engage with minds both young and old, in conversations wide and bold. From life's big questions to simple joys, we're here with insights, not just noise. The Jen Hardy Show, oh yeah, it's here. Soak up the sun with glitter and cheer. Shower thoughts to make you think. Champagne wishes and caviar dreams. The Jen Hardy Show, oh yeah, it's here. Soak up the sun with glitter and cheer. Shower thoughts to make you think. Champagne wishes and caviar dreams.
Hello, everybody. I am so excited that you guys are here. Ian and I were just doing an interview. I did a recorded interview so that we could have one that wasn't interrupted, because as much as I love talking to everybody, I just wanted to make sure that we had his story to share, because it is honestly about as unbelievable as a story as you can get, but it is all true. And you can see it all if you read the news or go to his website, which Dave will share. And I've got him here, so I'm going to introduce him. My plan is you guys can meet him, and he will tell a little bit about what happened, or a lot of it what happened, whatever, however that works. And then you all are more than welcome to ask questions. I just ask that everyone is positive and supportive, because, yeah, I think that's what we need. And as I said on Monday, for everything, right? It's okay. It's not live on YouTube, somebody said. Okay. Jay can see me, though. All right. Can anybody see me? Can you guys put in the chat if you can see? I see Emily. I see Jay. I see Dave. Yeah. All right. Here he is. I am bringing on Ian. Here's Ian Murray. You guys, he is amazing. His story is incredible. And first of all, Ian, I just want to say again, thank you so much for your service, not just because of what you went through here, but you have done a lot for our country. So on behalf of our whole family, thank you so much. So I just wanted to, yeah, I have a little extra sparkle because I tried to wash my face, and apparently I threw sparkles everywhere. So we do have another group coming in about 10 minutes. So I think we'll talk a little bit. Bruce, you're here. Yay. All right. So we'll talk a little bit, and we'll tell the main part of the story when we get everyone else here, so that you don't have to tell it twice. So we've got Bruce. I love you, Bruce. Thank you so much.
Hey, Bruce.
I appreciate you. Now, Ian, there is a thing with live chat, like I told you, but what we can do is, Dave, if you could just put things that we need to see up on the screen so that Ian and I can talk and we can focus. But before he gets started, Martha, American Court, Switchy Stitch, Sparkle Poots, everybody. Yeah, these are the people that we have come live. Their names are silly because, it's anonymous and whatever. So anyway, so Ian is a veteran. Are you currently in the Guard, or are you retired?
Reserves.
You're in the reserves now. Okay. All right. So Dave was Guard. So I was okay. And he has quite the story. So do you want to talk about how you got started in the military? We could start there.
Oh, geez. Yeah, when I was a kid, I always had a fascination with the military. My grandfather was a World War II veteran, highly decorated. I spent a lot of time with him as a child growing up, and he used to tell me all his stories about being in the Army and everything. And, I grew up in a military town as well. Jacksonville, Florida is very heavily saturated with the military. And I always just had a fascination with the military. So I think that's what drew me to wanting to be in the military.
So, and how long you've been in for? A long time.
Almost 22 years.
That is okay. That is a long time. Yeah, my husband was in 15 years. He can tell you the months and days. But yeah, because he was medically retired, it was not his choice. Because when it's part of you, it's part of you.
Yeah, I'm looking at that right now myself after I got injured over on my last deployment. So that might be happening to me here in the next 6 months to a year, I've been told.
Oh, I'm sorry. 15 years, 10 months, 28 days. Yeah, there you go. That's what. Yeah. So
Yeah, he just put it up.
so can you share some of the places you've been, or if you can't, or would rather
No,
not?
I can talk a lot. I mean, as far as my deployed locations, I did a tour in Afghanistan, Kandahar, in 2017. I was there for 9 months. I did an overseas TDY in Germany in 2022. It was a shorter TDY, but I loved it. We supported the European Command over there for the intel stuff. A lot of fun. I always tell people who join the military, if you have the chance to go to Europe, do it. Even if it's, you may not like the idea of it, but I promise you it'll be memories you look back on with positive remarks.
You weren't at
Uh,
Ramstein, were you?
I'm sorry.
Were you at Ramstein?
I was right next to Ramstein.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm Army. Ramstein's an Air Force base. I'm Army. So I was on the way the Army bases are there, they're all split up into smaller little bases. The base I was working on was called Rhine Ordnance Barracks. It was between Ramstein and Kaiserslautern.
Yeah. Okay.
And yeah, it was a really good location because we were 10 minutes to Ramstein and 10 minutes to K-Town. And then my most recent deployment, I was deployed to Djibouti, which is on the Horn of Africa. I was there for 6 months. I was supposed to be there for 9, but they let me come home early because my stepfather had a heart attack. So
Oh, I'm sorry.
he's doing fine.
Okay. Well, that's good.
But yeah, other than that, I've been various stateside TDYs. I've been to Fort Huachuca a few times. Love it out there. I've been to several little National Guard posts throughout the Midwest. My reserve units have been in South Carolina and Florida mostly. So yeah, that's about it in a nutshell.
Okay. Well, that's a lot, actually. That's a lot. Yeah. Our daughter lives over by there, so we were actually yeah, we got to leave from the train station in K Town and everything, and it is beautiful. It's a whole different, literally a whole different world over there.
It really is. I loved it. I've been trying to go back. If yeah, I'm actually wouldn't be opposed if before I retire, if they were to offer me another temporary duty assignment over there for a few months, I would go back.
Yeah, that is awesome. David, don't do it. Don't do it.
Booty
That is
City.
his favorite joke, I swear. And so when you said it, I knew, yeah, I knew that was going to come up. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Jay. Okay, so we've got Tokyo here. He's living in Tokyo, joining us. So that is really awesome. All
Cool.
right. So see if you want to you can start. Let's see. We've got people coming and but you know what? I think we're just going to start, and they can come in when they come in, because I think I'm not going to make you wait. So Ian was in the military, got a job with people that knew he was in the military and seemed to be very supportive with that in the beginning. And then things changed. And if you want to, I don't want to say too much. If you want to, do you mind? Because so we just did talk about this, because we recorded it, but he's going to tell you yeah, exactly what happened, because you guys are not going to believe this. And the reason we're doing this is because, when things happen and it goes out into the news and everyone hears about it, the court of opinion makes a decision. So you all watch court, you know that sometimes if you see something, you make an assumption that the person is guilty, whether or not they are guilty, because maybe things look like they are in the beginning. But unfortunately, later on, as things unfold, if you're not watching later on and you see how they were clearly innocent, you still assume they were guilty. And that's what's happened to Ian. And so in the court of public opinion, things have not changed. And so I am trying to help out some other people and just showing the court of public opinion the real story, because I think it's really important, as someone who has a heart for veterans as well as people. It's important to me. So that's why we're doing what we're doing, just so that you all know. Anyway, all right. So, and Ian, you always wanted to be a police officer, right? As well as in the military.
Well, growing up, I did, yes. As I said earlier, yeah, I had a fascination with being a police officer. I grew up around police officers. Some of the men at my church were police officers with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. So yeah, it was always, I think back then, from being a 90s kid, a lot of, that was somewhat of a popular thing, at least around the circle I was in. And, it was something I was interested in possibly pursuing. So that's why when I joined the military originally, I joined and went into the Air Force Reserves as security forces, which is their equivalency of military police. So after that, I was stationed in Charleston. I actually looked for a police officer job, and no police departments were hiring direct hires at that time. So I had gotten a phone call from the Charleston County Sheriff's Office, and they asked me if I'd be interested in working in the jail as a corrections officer or a detention officer. I forget the official title they called it back then, but I said, sure, I'll give it a try. So I went in and talked to him, and I told him, at that point, I'd like to be a police officer. I'd like at least to have the opportunity to do it. And they said, well, if you come work for us for a couple years in the jail, you can transfer out onto the street as a deputy. And I said, cool. So I gave it a try. And, I started working there, and it was a job. I mean, it was interesting. I had a really interesting schedule, and, it had its ups and downs. But, after 2 years, they kept moving the goalposts back. First it was 2 years, then it was 4 years. And then when I got closer to that point, oh, well, now you have to have a college degree. And between that and some of the bureaucracy that changed when we had a new chief take over, I just decided I really didn't want to work there anymore. So I left, drove trucks for a little while, did some other jobs. And in 2008-9 timeframe, when the big recession happened, I got phone call from a friend of mine who knew a high-ranking individual with JSO, and said, hey, we're hiring corrections officers down here. My friend wants to take you on a tour of the jail. And I was reluctant at first, but he said, well, just come down and take a tour of the jail, see what he has to say, And so I did, and I liked what I saw. And JSO at the time had a great benefits package. They had like a 20-year retirement where it was similar to the military. You work for 20 years, and then like from the first day of your retirement, you started getting like a nice sizable pension. And I thought, I'm still in my 20s. This would be cool. I could retire in my 40s and move on to another government job or something like that. So when I was being hired, going through the interview process, I went through a board interview, and I reminded him that at this point, I was in the Army National Guard. I'd switched over from the Air Force, and they said, yeah, we saw that in your resume. And they even encouraged me to utilize the military benefits they offered, like the paid military leave and other things like that. I'm like, okay, well, thank you. So I got hired, started working there, and almost immediately, I don't know what it was, but there were a certain group of supervisors that just seemed to have a problem with me taking military leave. They seemed to have a negative opinion about the whole program, because the way it worked was you got paid as if you were at work, and you got paid from the military. So in a sense, you got like an extra paycheck for going to drill. And, again, this is nothing I asked for. I was encouraged to use it, so I used it. It didn't usually cover my whole military schedule. Usually by the end of the year, I had to take leave without pay. So, I mean, it wasn't like a huge amount of days or anything, but, I just did what any other reservist that worked there did. There was another guy in my academy class that came through who was also in the reserves, and he was doing the same thing. So, but yeah, it got so bad at one point. I had a supervisor, a sergeant. I don't know what this guy's issue was, but he was trying to get me hemmed up. I was coming off my probationary period. And at one point, he even made a comment that, like, if I have my way, you're not going to get off probation. And he didn't even give me a reason why. So I come to the end of my probation, and my lieutenant calls me in his office and basically tells me that they're going to keep me on probation longer because I took military leave. And I even reminded him, I'm like, sir, that's against federal law. There's a specific clause in the Soldiers and Sailors Relief Act that says your seniority date can't be suspended because you're military duty. And he even contacted the Human Resources Department within the sheriff's office to draw up paperwork for me to sign, basically relinquishing the rights to my military leave so that he could keep me on probation. So I called, I made some phone calls, and I was advised to call my union, one of my union reps. So I sent an email out. I talked to president of the our FOP chapter and explained the situation. He was like, "Oh heck yeah, they can't do that to you. That's just no way." I said, "Well, can you come with me down to HR tomorrow to to look at this paperwork?" He says, "Don't even go. I'll take care of it. Just go to work as normal, and we'll go from there." So I didn't go to sign the papers, and like the following Monday, I got a call from the director of the sheriff's office, and he wanted to know why I didn't go sign the papers, and I explained why. And he said, "Okay, listen, I'm getting several different stories." So he said, "Tell me what's going on. Tell me your side of what's going on," which I liked because no one else up to this point was willing to do that. So I explained the whole thing to him, laid it all out. And at that point, he said, "Would you be willing to move facilities and go work at the county jail just to alleviate the situation?" And I said, "If that's what it'll take to, do that, sure." So I went down to the main jail, no problems there. I finished my probationary period. But then there was a lieutenant who worked there. She was the one who was instrumental to this whole bigger problem happening. I don't know what her problem with me was, but a lot of people had issues with her. She just had a chip on her shoulder for a certain group of people. I don't know what her problem was, like I said, but yeah, so I just kept coming to work, doing my job. Being in the military, I've spent the night in mud holes, and even at that point, prior to being deployed, I'd slept in holes in the ground. I've pulled 24-hour shifts on guard duty and stuff. So, she'd try to give me like the worst possible positions to work in the jail, away from like the pods, sitting on a isolated inmate or something. And it didn't bother me any, really. I mean, I was there to get my paycheck, so I did it. And eventually I transferred back out to the county prison I was working at, and she happened to be a lieutenant out there. And she put me back under the same sergeant who had tried to keep me on probation. And I immediately requested a transfer off his squad. And from my understanding, he requested to me be transferred off his squad as well, but she would not move me. I ended up having to get the chief involved because this guy started pulling his old antics, trying to give me substandard evals over baseless claims and stuff. The chief got involved and got him to back off. And, I think at that point, they stopped messing with me at least. But, yeah, I just don't know what their problems were. It's like, in the military, JSO is supposed to be from what I understand, most law enforcement agencies are supposed to be paramilitary. And I was always taught in the military, if you're a supervisor or a leader, you're supposed to like look out for the people that work for you and, have their best interests at heart. But these two clearly didn't. So in 2014, we had a government shutdown. I was supposed to go to drill that weekend on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The Friday, we didn't report in, but we still had orders. The way my supervisor put it, you still have orders, make yourself available. Was not the first time in my career something like that had happened, so I didn't think anything of it. And then we finished out the weekend, went to drill. Several months later, we got updated calendars for the remaining fiscal year. I went to update my leave, gave the calendar to my lieutenant. She went back and saw that they'd changed that particular weekend from months ago, where they'd removed the Friday portion, and asked me to what was going on. I explained the situation, and she had told me to change the day from a military leave day to a personal leave day. And I was a little confused. I'm like, but I had orders. And she said, "Well, if you didn't go in that day, you need to change it." I said, "I still had orders. Like, there's lots of times when I go on duty and I'm not actually going in. We don't work 7 days a week, 24 hours a day when we're on military orders." So I went back to my military unit, explained the situation to them, and they even said, "Yeah, you have valid orders, but if this is your civilian employer's policy, you probably should go along with what they're telling you so you don't get in trouble with them." So I went and talked to someone of high ranking in the sheriff's office, and they said the same thing. They're like, "Yeah, you had orders, but if your lieutenant's ordering you to do it, you probably should do it." And they even mentioned, "We know how this lieutenant is. If you don't do it, she's going to write you up for insubordination." And so I went back and did exactly what she told me to do. I changed the leave from military day to a personal day, and then she denied the request she told me to make. And then I found out shortly after through my military command, she'd filed a criminal complaint against me within my own department. And this went on for like 4 months. I contacted one of the attorneys within my union. Everyone, of course, said, "Oh, you did nothing wrong. Yeah, you had orders. You're fine. They'll do their job and you'll be cleared. It's not a big deal. This is just a tactic she's using to make your life miserable." So I was never worried. I figured, the system would work. These people would do their job. And at one point, they called me for questioning. I called the lawyer and said, "Hey, they're calling me for questioning. Can you come with me?" And he said, "No, there's no reason. Just call them back. Tell them, your orders are on file. And if they can't find them, let them know, and you can deliver them to them." And I did just that. I called them back and said, "Well, I don't feel I need to make a statement. My military orders are all on file with the watch commander's office, and they're on file with records. And if I even said, if you can't find them, call me back. I'll email them, fax them, whatever you need. I'll get them to you. I'll even hand them deliver to you if you need them." Never heard from them after that. And then a month later, I got orders to go on a 90-day TDY to go do some training. And I turned that leave in, was approved, of course. I took the few days off before to spend some time with my friends and family. My ex-wife's family was in town. The Friday afternoon, I was supposed to leave to get on a plane Monday morning. That Friday afternoon, I got a knock on my garage door, not the front door of my house, but they came into my garage. I opened the door and there's 4 guys standing there in like semi-riot gear. And I'm like, "Can I help you?" At first, I thought this was a wrong house type thing. And they're like, they asked, "Are you Ian Murray?" I said, "Yeah." One of them grabs me and puts cuffs on me and says, "We have a warrant for your arrest." At first, I almost started laughing because I thought it was a prank. Like my friends at work were playing some kind of a joke on me. And it was not a joke, unfortunately. They came in my house. I don't know what they did, but like once, we walked back in my kitchen, they went back through my house. One of them even used the bathroom, just so they took me down to their little substation and started asking me all these questions, like, "Where were you this day? Where were you that day?" And I said, "Well, what did my orders say?" And it became blatantly clear at that point that they either did not go look for my orders, or they just did and they decided to omit them from the whole investigation. And I'm like, yeah, I've never been granted military leave without orders. So, they then started making excuses. "Oh, well, you could have been more cooperative." I'm like, my orders, what more did I need to do for you guys? My orders are on file. What more did you need me to do? I was like, this is your job. You're supposed to investigate and find truth. And you clearly couldn't even do that. And then they brought in this internal affairs investigation, to do some paperwork. And they had 2 forms. One was like an administrative leave form where I basically was like not going to, like I was basically agreeing to stay on administrative leave without pay. And the other was a resignation form where I would have just resigned. And, and she kept trying to push that form under me. I'm like, "I'm not signing that. I didn't do anything wrong." I said, "Give me the other one." So, I think they realized from the very beginning, like, yeah, this guy's going to fight us. We made a mistake. Like after they took me out of the office and the recorders were turned off, they like the whole car ride down to the jail, they did nothing but make excuses, just like arguing that I could have been more cooperative and, trying to justify, I'm like, "You guys don't even have any evidence I did anything wrong. I have evidence. I have all the evidence in the world to prove I did nothing wrong." So when I got to the jail, I was booked, fingerprinted, photographed, all that. One of my own friends even booked me into the jail, a guy I worked with pretty regularly. And, once they, I called my wife and she'd heard about what happened and said, "Okay, I've got she said, "I already called the jail. I found out what your bail is. I'm coming down there right now to cash bail you out." So fortunately, that saved me from having to go through like a bail bondsman. I didn't have to spend the night in jail. I was just put in a holding cell for a few hours, thank God. And then a couple hours after that, while we were waiting on the paperwork, one of my friends came back, knocked on the door, said, "Hey, man, I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but it's all over the news." The detectives had ran to the local news media and blasted it all over the drive time news for that afternoon channel, News for Jacks. The following morning, the Florida Times-Union ran a story about it on page 2 of the front section of the newspaper. It was all over the radio. I mean, it was a mess. I had people calling me like saying, "Is this true?" I'm like, "Well," I said, "it's true that I was arrested, but I didn't do anything that they're saying I did." And they're like, "Yeah, man, there's no way." And, so the same lawyer who I'd been speaking with, who had been telling me I did nothing wrong, I talked to him, and of course, all of a sudden, him working for the union, all of a sudden said, well, I can get you a plea deal. And I said, does that mean I have to plead guilty to something? He's like, yes. I said, but you told me I did nothing wrong. He's like, well, if they got a judge to sign a warrant, you must be guilty. And I'm like, no, I'm not buying that. So I said, I'll tell you what, I got an appointment with another lawyer on Monday. I'm going to talk to him before I make a decision. And, he's like, well, I can represent you for free. And I'm like, I don't think money's the issue here right now. So I went and talked to this other lawyer who was a family friend. And he, of course, said, yeah, dude, this is terrible. Like, this should have never happened. And not only that, like, you have grounds for a pretty solid lawsuit, too. So I hired him. And I hired him on Monday. Within a week of me hiring him, the same detectives who arrested me did more investigating probably that week than they did the whole 4 months prior. They went to my Army unit. They went to my full-time staff and tried to question them. And they basically said, no, kick rocks. You guys didn't even call us prior to doing this. If you'd have called us, we could have cleared this up in 5 minutes. And they came back later with a subpoena and threatened members of my Army unit saying, well, we'll take you to jail for obstructing. And one of my full-time guys was like, I don't think you understand here. You just falsely arrested one of your own employees for basically serving in the military. And if you come out back here and harass us again, we're going to call the national news networks and let them know this. And after that, they didn't bother him anymore. So this went on for 2 months. The state attorney got a hold of the case. And of course, he tried to, get us to take a plea deal. My lawyer's like, yeah, even my lawyer's like, yeah, we're not in a position to take a plea deal here. And at one point, they even offered to give us a deal where they'll drop everything if we simply agreed not to sue them. So, they know they'd messed up. And I said, nope, too late for that. Not happening. So a few weeks after that, the state attorney dropped the case. From my understanding, he didn't even do any paperwork. I was never actually even charged with a crime. I was arrested, but there were no charges ever officially filed against me. So then I got a letter from JSO stating they had turned the matter over to Internal Affairs for an administrative investigation. Basically, the whole point of that was to save face for the guys who falsely arrested me. And first thing my lawyer did after that happened was he sent them a letter reminding them that I was represented, and if they need to get a hold of me, to contact them. The next thing he did was he took my entire case file and sent it over to the city manager's office and explained and asked them to reply with any policies or rules that I might have broken. About 3 weeks later, he got a letter back stating Mr. Murray has violated no rules or no policies within the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. So at that point, we already, we were cleared on that end. But that didn't stop them from trying, and I mean trying in the most unethical manner. The detective they used to do this investigation on the administrative side was also in the military. At first, I was a little bit relieved. I thought, oh, finally, somebody who might understand how the military works, and, gets the whole how orders work thing. I was very mistaken in that idea. I found out through members of my command that this gentleman, he was in the Air National Guard, and he's an Air Force OSI agent. And I found that out because apparently when he was going to members of my command, instead of knocking on the door and saying, hello, I'm Detective so-and-so with Jacksonville Sheriffs, he was flashing his Air Force OSI credentials and saying, I'm Special Agent so-and-so with Air Force OSI. I need to talk to you about one of your soldiers. And my command, every member of my command pretty much told him, listen, we know what's going on. We know you're not here on behalf of Air Force OSI. I know, and one of them even said, you may think we're Army and we're a bunch of dumb hicks or something, but we're an intel unit. We know what you're doing is wrong, and we're going to tell on you. And, he just, was basically just desperate, I guess. I don't know if he'd been promised some kind of a promotion or something, if he could secure some kind of evidence against me, but the lengths this guy was going to try and get false dirt on me was amazing. And then he started calling me directly, demanding I come in for an interview. And I said, did you not get the letter my lawyer sent you? And he's like, I don't care what your lawyer said. I'm not asking. You're going to cooperate with me. And I'm like, what's your name and phone number? I wrote it down, hung up on him, and just called my lawyer and let my lawyer deal with him. And then So yeah, every time he tried to call, every time he had information or wanted us to come in, he would always try to call me first, thinking I was going to answer the phone. And I just told him, I'm like, look, I'm not acknowledging any communications from you. You've got my lawyer's info. Call them. And then I got to go back and finish the training I was originally scheduled for the year before. I was out in Huachuca, and about halfway through the course, this guy tried to call me again. I ignored him. Then my lawyer calls me and says, "Yeah, this detective called and said that they've concluded the investigation, and they want you to come in." And I told him you were on military leave, and apparently the detective threw a conniption fit. Like, how is he on military leave? He shouldn't be on military leave. And that brings me back to another thing. When this whole thing started, I have a top secret security clearance. And of course, when this whole thing started, it got flagged. While the criminal charges were still pending, they came in and investigated and gave it back to me. That's how confident was the military and the government was that I didn't do anything wrong. And that was another thing that really made JS so mad, because it pretty much took all the fire out of their case that the federal someone's asking how long I was in jail. About half a day.
Yeah, he had the money to bail himself out, so that worked out really good. And there's something about Facebook pictures. Did something happen?
Well, I'm going to get to that, but yeah, when we got to the end of this,
I'm going to put questions up. You don't have to answer them right away.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I mean, you can
answer them as they came up, but anyway, no.
Either way.
But anyway, no. Yeah. So basically, even at the end of this investigation, they came back. But as I was saying, I was out in Fort Huachuca at this school. I was in the middle of training. When this detective found out that I was on military orders, he immediately asked my lawyer for a copy of the orders. And I told my lawyer, I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, if they need, I still technically am employed with them. So if they're asking for them, I guess you can give them to them. The next day, I'm in my class. I get pulled out of training by our course leader. And he says, tell me about your arrest. And I'm like, where's this coming from? He says, I got a phone call from somebody stating that you've been arrested and we should look into it. So this detective had called the schoolhouse just for the sole purpose, had nothing to do with his investigation, but just to try and get me thrown out of the school. I don't know why he did this. I'd never met this guy before. I do not know why he had such a disinterest in me from the very beginning. But yeah, fortunately, they called back to my unit. My unit explained everything, and I got to stay in school. Unfortunately, I did have to leave the training environment early because my grandfather passed away, and I was sent home on a Red Cross message. But we got back. We went back. My lawyer and I went back to the sheriff's office, and they still tried to sustain allegations against me. And it's kind of funny because this detective we'd been talking to all of a sudden was no longer involved in the case either. It was a little strange that he suddenly was just gone. So my lawyer and I discussed it, and we said, you know what? I want to have a civil service hearing and put this thing together, because that would take it beyond the sheriff's office. I said, let's get an objective third party to look at this, and I want to be done with this. So we opted to have the civil service hearing. And at that point, my lawyer had gotten the whole internal affairs and basically the whole case file. And you mentioned Facebook pictures. This lieutenant who had filed the complaint against me apparently had been engineering this for a while, because she took pictures off my Facebook page of when I was on vacation with my family on days I was not even in military leave, and put them in the complaint just to try and fluff it up. So yeah, my lawyer's like, yeah, the way this was done was just so sloppy. I can't believe they even entertained this. So, it kind of reminded me of a bunch of rent-a-cops trying to make sergeant, they were all just trying to I guess they felt, if we get can secure some kind of conviction, we can get another little bronze star on our chart and get promoted or something like that. Because a lot of these internal affairs detectives and integrity detectives, I found out they were either police officers coming off the street trying to climb the ladder, or they'd been up on the ladder and knocked down for something. So, it was that kind of environment.
How long did it drag out?
Oh, geez. The arrest happened, I think it was around May of 2014, and we finally closed the whole internal affairs thing. I want to say it was around October the following year, so about a year and a half almost.
Wow.
And
how did it affect your family?
Oh, pretty badly. I mean, I didn't have income. fortunately, my family was very supportive. My military unit was very supportive. My mom was offered, fortunately, I had a savings account and some passive income. So, that kind of helped us out. Um, but yeah, we ended up having to, it did put a lot of strain on my family, especially my ex-wife and I. And, we just had to deal with it the best we could. Fortunately, I just kind of, like I mentioned earlier, I have a CDL. I picked up some independent jobs driving trucks locally. My military unit gave me some extra duty days. And then, yeah, at the end of at the end of the internal affairs investigation, when we were about to have the civil service hearing, they drug that out for like 3 or 4 months. My lawyer finally got to a point where they couldn't drag it out anymore. We were going to have it. The undersheriff calls my lawyer and says, can you guys bring Mr. Murray in so, as he put it, we could potentially resolve this? And I had first said no. I'm like, no, I'm tired of dealing with these people. Let's just do the cil service hearing and we'll move on.
Now,
They
did that corresponded with a certain thing happening, didn't it?
Yeah.
I told you.
But anyway, because originally from the administrative charge, they wanted to fire me. And then when I originally said no, the undersheriff said, well, I'll just take a 10-day suspension. I still said no. I basically informed them I'm not admitting to doing anything wrong because I did nothing wrong. And I even said, I told my lawyers, they know this. They know I did nothing wrong. And I'm not going to just take, and even the union president at one point was calling me, trying to get me to take a deal because the sheriff election was coming up and they didn't want the new sheriff having to deal with this catastrophe. So I said, I don't care. That's not my problem. I'm looking out for me here.
Yeah.
So we went into the undersheriff's office. This guy's name was Pat Ivy. And one of the, there's that saying, power corrupts. He is in my opinion, from what I've seen, the poster child for that. We walked into his office. I went in there with good faith, and his whole strategy was to sit behind his desk with his, glimmery uniform and try to force me to take a deal. And even after my lawyers telling him, we have evidence that your detective falsely identified himself, this man, prior to this happening, I had nothing on my record other than maybe a speeding ticket from 2001. I had never been in trouble before. I made it a point because of, the jobs I did, both in the military and in the civilian world, to not, live a bad lifestyle. I made it a point to live a very moral life. I tried to, no one's perfect, but, I didn't get in trouble. I didn't break the law. I always tried to, even growing up, I always was taught, to be a good person. So it got to the point where I wouldn't agree with the guy. He ended up throwing me out of his office, said, get out of my office. I said, fine. I went outside. My lawyers talked to him for another 5 minutes. So we went outside. My lawyers basically said, yeah, I'm sorry. That was a huge waste of time. We're just going to have the hearing. So I said, okay, well, let me know when it is. So then I started getting phone calls and voicemails from like 2 days before the hearing was supposed to happen, from high-ranking people in the sheriff's office, like demanding I come back to work, demanding I do different things. And I called my lawyer and he's like, yeah, we haven't gotten any correspondence from anybody, so you can ignore those. Then the undersheriff, again, his name's Pat Ivy. I have no problem mentioning this guy's name because, like, he needs to be exposed for this. Sent people to my house. One day, my wife was home, and I forget what I was doing. I was in the back of the house doing something, and she came yelling back at the girl, like, somebody's kicking on the front door. And there was a large gentleman wearing a JSO polo at my front door, kicking and banging on the front door. And then my neighbor actually called. I reached into the closet. We both grabbed our self-defense weapons, that being my AR-15, and my wife grabbed her handgun. And my next door neighbor called me and said, hey, what's this guy doing at your front door? I said, I don't know, but he's not welcome here. So my next door neighbor went over to our fence line. We have a 4-foot chain link fence that separates our property. Walked up and started taking pictures of the guy's car and him with his phone. And as soon as my neighbor did that, the guy left. So yeah, my ex-wife's claimed she'd been She claimed she was being followed a couple times. She worked in Jacksonville. She came home, said like, there's been this car following me all day. Said it was a white unmarked car. She was legitimately scared a couple times. And I said, don't worry. Like, they're just trying to intimidate us. But yeah, I didn't back down. I told my lawyer, I'm like, yeah, I'm still going to come to this hearing. I was a little nervous to see what they were going to do to keep me from coming to the hearing. But at that point I said, yeah, I'm not backing down. We're going to have this hearing. And during this time, they called my lawyer and said something. No, I didn't have cameras at the time. They said, we're going to give him all his back pay if he just agrees to the charges. And I said, no, not happening. So after all this, it was literally, I think, at like 7 o'clock the night before we were supposed to have the civil service hearing. The city attorney calls my lawyer and said, okay, we're willing to drop everything if he just doesn't show up to the hearing. Like, we'll drop all the charges, we'll give him his back pay, we'll, the whole thing will go away. And I said, good. So as soon as that was done, I got a check for my, my back pay. I did have to pay my lawyers another several $1,000s out of that. After that, not too long after that, I did get to go back and finish my training. And then after that, I got deployed to Afghanistan. So that kind of held up the lawsuit part of things. As far as the amount of lawsuits go, I'm not sure how many were filed. We did file a lawsuit against the sheriff's office for false arrest, false imprisonment, a few other things. And they drug it out. And the same undersheriff, Pat Ivey, drug it out for a long time. And unfortunately, when I got back from Afghanistan, I had to go through a divorce. My wife decided she wanted to pursue another interest. So, yeah, we waited for that to finalize at the end of 2018. And then my lawyer filed the lawsuit. They drug it out for about another 3 years. And it's kind of sad because we ended up settling out of court. But the end defense of these detectives was they were dumb. They basically said, well, we thought we'd done our jobs properly. And their argument with that was we didn't have any ill will or malice intent. Because I guess in Florida, the way my lawyer explained it to me, and the way it worked was, like, I guess for a lawsuit to happen in Florida for something like that, you have to show there was an intent to harm. So by them doing that, they felt it took a lot of the liability, but they still settled out of court like a week before we were supposed to go in for hearings. So, as far as I'm concerned, that was a win for me.
Yeah.
And then after that happened, we contacted all the local media outlets who ran the false narrative, and they wouldn't even respond. So I've been doing interviews wherever I can to try and, not only clear my name publicly, so people don't Google my name and say, oh my God, this guy's, pardon my language, but he's a piece of shit. I want people to know the truth of the matter. But also, I was told during this whole thing, people have had this happen to them within my own sheriff's office, and the sheriff's office has gotten away with it because they usually can't afford to fight it.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping this story will get the word out that you can fight back. If you're not wrong, don't admit you're wrong. Fight. If you need resources, the military is there to help you. There's all different kinds of programs. If you have a good military command too, like mine, they gave me extra duty days. And when these detectives came in there and were trying to, throw their weight around, they threw their weight of the U.S. Army right back in their face and knocked them on their rear ends. So, that's basically what I'm trying to do now.
Yeah, and it's amazing because when I went out there, and I was doing some research, those same articles are still there as though it was never dropped.
I know.
It blows my mind. And
Yep.
that's why we need to get people to get out here and let him tell his story, because we need to have more things showing that it's not true than is still out there that it is true. Yeah. So how did the community around you respond when the story broke on the news?
Well, fortunately, most of the people that know me knew this was wrong to begin with. The general public, though, of course, we read some of the comments on the news, and it's like, oh, typical government employee, and a lot of negative. Some people did some FOIA requests for my, disciplinary actions at the jail, which there was none. I've never been written up, never been suspended. Even at work, I was a, good officer. But yeah, like I said, the people who around me came to my came to my aid. Even people I worked with, when they were questioned, they backed me up. But, unfortunately, like the sheriff's office at that point wasn't looking for the truth. They were looking for imaginary dirt. Because even people that were around, like, even said, yeah, this lieutenant has a chip on her. She's constantly talked trash about me and all this. They didn't care. They were just looking for anything they could to try to make a false charge stick.
That is just so wild. So wild. If you guys have any other questions for him or anything, yeah, it doesn't even seem like it could be something that happened, but there was somebody that was saying, it happened to them too. So something similar, not the exact same thing. Somebody that does not live in the United States.
Yeah. As far as Jag saying anything, this wasn't really a military disciplinary action. I mean, we did consult with the JAG attorneys at one point, and they, of course, said the same thing. Like, yeah, if you had military orders, you did nothing wrong. But unfortunately, because I wasn't on active duty when this arrest happened, they couldn't really represent me. With the way it works on reserve duty, like if I'd been arrested on, if I'd already been on, and I think honestly that's why they came and arrested me when they did, because they knew if they'd come and got me when I was on orders, I would have had JAG lawyers and everything, and it would have just made a huge mess. Unfortunately, no, that lieutenant was never held accountable, because once the sheriff's office took action, it took the weight off her and put it on the laps of the detectives. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Friction.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I mean, I do applaud you. And I can't imagine, because if you're watching, you have to understand when you're in the military and you're, you have your weekends, you have your weeks in the summer, and that's a thing. But when you're deployed, it's a lot of stress. And so to be going through this, for the soldier, for the family, for everybody. So you've got those stresses, and then I can't imagine what this stress just would have done to I just cannot. So, yeah, it's incredible. So the fact that you're sitting here and able to talk about it is I just applaud you for being able to do it, and for standing up for the other people, like you were saying to me earlier, that can't, that can't stand up, or they don't have the strength anymore because they're fought out.
Yeah, I mean, and that's, like I said, it is sad and that's part of their strategy. First thing they do is they put you on unpaid leave, so you lose your paycheck, and then you have to usually, corrections officers it's not a high paying job, so I mean, a lot of people they do this to. They know that they're gonna have that advantage of poverty, being poverty, the other party being poverty stricken, and they're just gonna give in to take some kind of a deal to get out from under it before it bankrupts them. And like I said, fortunately, I had a little bit of a savings nest egg put away. My military unit provided me with some extra duty days. I was able to pick up some other side work, being a truck driver, having that license. But yeah, that's their strategy. They know what they're doing when they do this to people. They know that like they're going to have the cards stacked in their favor in that fact, just because of the fact that most people can't afford to fight it.
So do you still live in Jacksonville?
My permanent residence is down there. I still own a home near there, but the last several years, I've actually been working up in the DC area, doing contracting work for the government.
Yeah. Is it uncomfortable if you're there? Does it?
No, not really, and not in Jacksonville. I do come back occasionally. I still have family there. My brother lives there. But no, honestly, not really. I think that at this point they've realized that doing anything to me is not going to serve much of a purpose. Other interviews I've done have been out there for a while. I've had a lot of people in my professional circle messaged me, said, "Hey man, I just saw one of your interviews, man. That's crazy." So, I mean, the story's out there, but yeah, when I go down to Jacksonville, and I don't really have any worries, and I haven't had any interactions with anyone from the sheriff's office. I've never been pulled over, but Jacksonville is a big city. So, I mean,
right.
I don't think they're going to be like, I don't think they've got like pictures of me on the dashboards of their car, saying, "Be on the lookout for this guy," so I don't think that's happening. And, but yeah, when I go, plus like my house is not in Jacksonville, like it's out. That's what kills me. Like when this whole thing happened, they came out of their jurisdiction to arrest me. and then they came out of their jurisdiction to harass me. So, um, yeah, it's the whole thing is just unbelievable. Like so many ways they violated their own protocol, falsely identifying themselves, like they did so many things that were far worse than anything they were trying to accuse me of. And most of them got away with it scot free.
Yeah. So, oh, if somebody wanted to support you somehow, I mean, not saying like financially, whatever, is there anything that anyone can do? I don't know, to reach out or do anything?
I mean, honestly, just share the story, get it out there, not just for me, but for anyone else who might need help with this kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, financially, thank God, it was I lost, when this whole thing happened, I had to sell my car. My wife and I had to eat ramen noodles and PB&J 3 days a week, but we got by. I got to keep my house and all that stuff, but I pretty much recovered financially from this. But yeah, I think that's just the biggest thing is spreading the word. Get it out there, and if you're wronged, hold them. Hold these people that wrong you accountable. Don't just let them get away. And it's sad because
I'll ask you when you're done talking. It's a thing.
but no, I like I said, it's sad because I don't have anything against law enforcement. I mean, there's a lot of people that just flat out hate cops. They think all cops are bad. And, I can tell you, not all cops are bad. I've worked with a lot of great police officers, corrections officers. I've worked with federal agents and stuff like that. There are good people out there that are wearing the badge that want to just do their job, make a difference in their community, and earn an honest living. But unfortunately, there are the rotten apples in there. Hence, these people that did this to me, that just they've gotten a little bit of power and they've let it corrupt them. And the sad thing is, they're probably going to do it to somebody else. Although I did find out after this was done that JSO has made massive policy revisions based off my case to where, like, these detectives, when they're doing an investigation, they can't just go to a judge on their own. Like, the whole case has to be, peer reviewed, I guess, and go through one of their commands to make sure that all the ducks are in a row before it can happen.
All right. Apparently, I have to ask you because everyone is saying in the chat. Okay, so Colin's got a channel, and on Colin's channel, they all have a debate about grilled cheese sandwiches. You're not going to believe this debate. I didn't. It is if you are cooking a grilled cheese sandwich, I didn't even know this was a thing. Would you cook it in butter or would you cook it in mayonnaise?
I usually do butter, but I might have to give the mayo thing a try now that it's been brought up.
There you go. Okay, that's awesome. And I was told, okay, so if somebody else who has a channel or whatever would like to what's the word, interview you so that you can tell your story, are you open to that too?
Absolutely.
Okay, so if you're in here and you've got a court channel or something and you would like to have Ian come on your show, let me know and I can get you in contact with people because the more times that he can get his story out, what we need to do is we need to counterbalance what is out there. That's basically the thing. And we need to show people that this is not acceptable and that people are willing to fight back, even though it's hard. All right, so I know, Pokeroo, I'm with you. It's really surprised me. Although Linus says don't do it. The more I think about it, I know I may have to try it too. Yeah, they always see it's the light thing, right? Because a lot of these court things are serious and they're heavy, and so the grilled cheese is just a way of lightening things up a little bit. So we're almost done. It's 9:56. If anybody has any last minute questions or anything, oh, if mayo, it must be Kewpie mayo. American mayo does not fry very well. Okay, that's good. It's good to know. Denali Mike says, great job at fighting it. Yeah, I mean, I have to say, a year and a half while you're doing military things and doing other things and trying to support a family, I cannot. Okay, now I don't know if we're going to post this. There's a website. Can we share your website? Is that
Absolutely,
okay?
please do.
Okay, Dave, can you share his website in there? That would be really cool. Bread browns up better with mayo on the outside versus butter. Okay. Well, we may just have to try it. I don't know.
Yeah, you guys are. I'm gonna have to make some grilled cheese sandwiches for dinner tomorrow. I think you guys are got me thinking about it now.
There you go. See, Oh my gosh, except that I can't have dairy or wheat or eggs, so if I had a grilled cheese and mayo, none of it would be like normal stuff like everybody else eats, so that's kinda gross. Alright, so Dave has put his website up, so that you can all, yeah, do that. Did you
Um,
ever wanna give up?
no, I never wanted to give up. Never. No, this was one of those things where once this happened, it just kind of ignited a fire in me, to be honest with you. And I said, I'm not giving this up. And like I said, I got a lot of support. My military unit said, don't give up. We've got, I heard a lot. We got your back. We're here for you. My military command even said, don't give this up. You've worked too hard to get where you're at. Don't give it up because a couple of egotistical Keystone cops want to put a little bronze star on their chart, like fight it to the end. And I did. So, I'm very happy. I've still got my clearance. I'm still in the military. I've still gotten to do my job on the military, and I love what I do. So
That's awesome, and that's one great thing about the military community, right? Is that everybody's got each other's back and,
for the
um
most part, yeah. I mean,
well,
anyone who's
yeah.
been in the military knows that there are some people who
There's
just
that
don't.
one guy, he's everywhere, but
It
except
is.
for
It
that
is.
one.
Well, look what happened with me at the sheriff's office. I hate to say it. There's people in the military that have done that to people too. In fact, I'm actually getting a degree in management right now. I've been taking a lot of leadership courses, and I've been learning the different types and styles of leaderships. And it's been really kind of cool because when I write my papers and essays and do discussions with my course, I'm able to incorporate a lot of my personal experience, and my professors, for the most part, love it. So, it's been a great experience. It's piggybacked in so many other ways, not only in my professional career, but my academics and everything. So, it's really helped me get good grades in my course. I've got 15 hours left before I finish my BA, and um,
Congratulations.
I'm considering a master's program after this, depending on how things go with my military career and stuff like that. I'm waiting on my VA claims to go through right now. So, um, yeah, it's been a heck of a story, but I've also been encouraged to write books and memoirs on it. I might end up doing that. My mom and my grandfather were both authors, so I might be that might be a thing I continue in the next generation.
That would be great, and I've gotta say, and, it sounds trite because people say it so often, but you truly are an inspiration, you
I
really are,
appreciate
and
that.
I
Thank
think
you.
by telling your story, you're inspiring other people too to stand up for what's right, because like you said, you never wanted to step down because you knew you were right, and so many people back down because they're getting
Yeah,
bullied, and so,
well,
that's the ultimate bullying right there,
it
people with
really
guns,
is.
you
It
know?
really is. But the problem was like the sheriff's office realized they weren't just going to have to bully me; they were going to have to bully the army, and I think that's what really saved me from when they realized the army was going to stand behind me, they just realized I don't, they basically got to the point where they were just like shooting into the dark, hoping they could hit something and, do something that would make me give in. And then, like I said, the ultimate low blow was when Pat Ivy, the undersheriff, started his, abusing his power, engaging in the harassment campaign against my ex-wife and I. To me, like, I have no respect for people like that abuse their power. You're not put in that position to bully people and harass people. You're there to lead and set an example. And, I have no respect for that guy at all or anyone like him. He had his chance to do the right thing, and he clearly, his ego got the best of him. And, he was in charge of the whole civil lawsuit thing. He's the reason that the lawsuit took so long. It was like a spite thing. He didn't want to give in to me.
Yeah,
But, it's
we
really,
have a Sheriff Ivy here, and, I don't want to know if they're really
say that
at
again.
this point. We have a Sheriff Ivy here too, and I said, "Shh, don't ask if they're related," because I want to interview him, but not if yeah, if after this, not if they're related. Because anyway, um, all right, well, it is 10 o'clock, and you have been talking to me for an hour and a half. Everybody, if you could, I will edit and release the recorded episode by tomorrow. So if you could all share either the live, it's probably better to share the interview than the live because there's a lot of chatting and other things in there. Um, we would really appreciate it. Just get the story out as much as you can because people need to hear. And like I said, I mean, it's inspirational. It really is. I think there's a lot of people that have gone through a lot less and given up, and so I
Yeah,
truly
I mean, looking back on it, it's like, wow, even it honestly amazes me the whole process, everything I had to go through. But it's kind of like just it's really giving me a perspective when you're dealing with a lot of problems. It's like I forget who said it, but it's like eating an elephant. You can do it if you take it one bite at a time, and you might not finish it in one sitting, but you will eventually accomplish, the challenge and get it done. And you just have to have that mindset, take it one bite at a time, and take a break when you need to, and ask for help when you need to.
There we go. All right, we're leaving on that. That is the perfect time to go. Thank you, everybody. You are amazing. Thank you, Ian, for
Thank you.
being willing to come on. And bye, guys. We love you. We will see you Monday. Meg's Court Watch is going to be here. She helped solve a cold case from 50 years ago, and she's going to talk about it. So be sure to join us. And yeah, I will send that. We'll have the interview out tomorrow if I have to stay up all night, because yeah.